But first, Senator Elizabeth Warren's surge in the polls earned her the focus of the other candidates on the debate stage last night. Attacked 16 times, according by our count, mostly by fellow Senator Amy Klobuchar. But it was Mayor Pete Buttigieg who got it started when Elizabeth Warren refused to give a straight answer when asked if her Medicare for All proposal would raise taxes on the middle class.
A yes or no question that didn't get a yes or no answer. Look, this is why people here in the Midwest are so frustrated with Washington in general and Capitol Hill in particular. Your signature, Senator, is to have a plan for everything, except this.
At least Bernie's being honest here and saying how he's going to pay for this and that taxes are going to go up. And I'm sorry, Elizabeth, but you have not said that. And I'm tired of hearing, whenever I say these things, oh, it's Republican talking points. You are making Republican talking points right now in this room by coming out for a plan that's going to do that. I appreciate Elizabeth's work. But again, the difference between a plan and a pipe dream is something that you can actually get done.
Saying this is a rules problem is ignoring the reality that Americans see around us every single day.
I want to give a reality check here to Elizabeth, because no one on this stage wants to protect billionaires. Not even the billionaire wants to protect billionaires. We just have different approaches. Your idea is not the only idea.
And sometimes I think that Senator Warren is more focused on being punitive or pitting some part of the country against the other.
I'd like to ask Senator Warren if she would join me in calling for an end to this regime change war in Syria, finally.
And so, Senator Warren, I just want to say that I was surprised to hear that you did not agree with me that on this subject of what should be the rules around corporate responsibility for these big tech companies, when I called on Twitter to suspend Donald Trump's account.
So, you know, Willie, a couple of things there. First of all, it was striking how much they went after Elizabeth Warren. But also, she is actually creating talking points that Republicans will use effectively in the Midwest, especially, and in places like Florida. If she doesn't answer the question, how are you going to pay for a Medicare for All plan that, again, Bernie's admitted will cause taxes to be raised on middle-class Americans? She just can't answer that question.
Well, as Mayor Buttigieg said, it is a yes-no question, and the answer is yes. Bernie Sanders has offered the answer, yes. Prices are going to go up, taxes are going to go up a little bit on the middle class. She's putting it all on the wealth tax that she's proposing and using billionaires as the boogeyman. But the truth is, if you read through the plan, it will raise costs for people in the middle class. And Karine, it was fascinating to watch last night. Yeah. You know, there's been a lot of talk about, okay, who's the front runner in this race? Is it Joe Biden? Is it Elizabeth Warren? Well, the field answered that question for itself last night, because they focused almost all of their fire on Elizabeth Warren and not on Joe Biden.
It was very interesting to see. Yeah, all of them agreed on one thing, which was Elizabeth Warren is the front runner. They came for the queen, if you will. And I think she did fine. You know, she held her own. She stuck on message, agree with her or not. She did stick to her own message. But I always go back to this. I always go back to, is it going to change anything? You know, I don't think that second tier, those 2-3%ers, they're not going to break into that first tier. I think it's pretty, we are where we are. We have the three front runners, and you have Pete Buttigieg pretty much out there. He had a strong performance last night. I thought Amy Klobuchar had her best performance of all of the debates, and also, you know, Kamala Harris had some strong moments there as well. But that's the thing. I don't know if we are where we are with these debates and if they are really going to move the needle for anyone right now. It seems like everything's kind of frozen in its place at the moment.
Still too many people.
I agree. Way too many people, and we've seen it. We see it every 4 years that Iowa sort of waits until after Christmas, then they start focusing, and you'll see people like John Kerry in 2004 surge to the front. Barack Obama surging. In the debate though last night, the attacks against Elizabeth Warren, a few of them, Sam, seemed to really land, and of course her not answering the question about raising taxes. But I think more importantly, the tone, the style of her approach. One called it punitive. And Amy said, you know, your plan's not the only plan. Basically saying, you know what, we can disagree with you without being bad Democrats. We can disagree with you without being bad Americans.
Yeah, I think there's a general frustration that
Warren has risen to this point. And she's done so by basically saying, I have the boldest approach, and anything that comes short of mine is not bold. And I have the most educated approach, and anything that does come.
And if you disagree with me, you're feeding into Republican talking points, which would be maddening to me if I were on the stage.
And I do think there's genuine frustration among other Democrats who feel like they want to get to the same place, but they'd want to do it incrementally, not in the way that she's doing it. The question is, do they engender more sympathy for her by going after her this way? I thought Amy Klobuchar did a really good job. I thought some other attacks against Warren didn't land as well. There was a moment where Biden went after her over the creation of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was an interesting exchange. But in the end, he said, you kind of owe me for the votes that I helped get for that bureau. And there was a little bit of a risk there, I thought.
Well, no, the thing that was great about Elizabeth Warren, and sort of what I've noticed about her every step of the way before she even became a candidate, is that her story and all the work she has done backs up her message. So when you ask her what's behind her message, what's behind her idea, what's behind her policy, she'll go into a story as to something she built, something she brought to the table, something she did that went against the tide, and always has a clear message to back it up, reasons for it. Here's the exchange you were talking about, Sam. Let's take a look.
Following the financial crash of 2008, I had an idea for a consumer agency that would keep giant banks from cheating people. And all of the Washington insiders and strategic geniuses said, don't even try, because you will never get it passed. And sure enough, the big banks fought us, the Republicans fought us, some of the Democrats fought us, but we got that agency passed into law.
I agreed with the great job she did. And I went on the floor and got you votes. I got votes for that bill. I convinced people to vote for it. So let's get those things straight, too.
Senator Warren, do you want to respond?
I am deeply grateful to President Obama, who fought so hard to make sure that agency was passed into law. And I am deeply grateful to every single person who fought for it and who helped pass it into law. But understand—
You did a hell of a job in your job.
Thank you. But understand this. It was a dream big, fight hard.
Not a light touch. Mike, I read a quote last week. It said that academic politics is so vicious because the stakes are so small. It seems to me that the battles that we see in these debates remind me of the smallness of academic politics. The smallness, the difference, the minutiae between, did I help you get that passed? Did you get that passed? You owe me this. I thank President Obama, but I don't thank you. And Joe Biden. Come on, man. I will say again, I give Cory Booker such high praise for actually being one of the only people that have discipline going, oh, you all are attacking each other. Okay, you guys have fun. Hey, Donald Trump, let me tell you why you're destroying the republic, while you're attacking Constitution. These people are talking about how many angels are dancing on the head of a pin while our constitutional norms are being shredded and a president is asking China to interfere with American democracy, something that his intel chiefs have all said is the greatest threat to American democracy. Cory gets it. I'm sorry. Most of the people on stage don't.
Well, Joe, what's interesting is during the course of the debate, we have a president of the United States who constantly, by the hour of each and every day, makes an effort to alter the Constitution of the United States, alter the ethics of the United States government, and alters the way people view government and view him, actually. Karine is absolutely right when she said a few moments ago that there's no way of knowing who moves the needle on this thing. And to your point that you just raised about Elizabeth Warren and that clip that we showed, let's face facts. Elizabeth Warren is a star. She is a star on the debate stage. She has been a star during this campaign. But you have to wonder the emotional reaction of people watching that exchange, in which, if you note it, she never once looked at Vice President Biden after he said correctly that he helped garner votes for the Consumer Protection Bureau on the floor of the Senate, which he did. She never once looked at him. And then, to use your phrase, Joe, Was there a smallness aspect to her that people will notice, that will register with people, when she not only not looks at him, but clearly says deliberately, I would like to thank, slight pause, President Obama. Not both of them, not Obama and Biden, not both of them. I would like to thank, slight pause, President Obama.
Yeah. Who, by the way, Willie, at the time, it ain't nothing, but Joe Biden was the president of the Senate.
Yeah.
As vice president, he was the guy that went down there and made things happen.
And a guy who'd been there for 35 years, knew everybody in the Senate, could wrangle votes, and he was the guy doing that dirty work, not just on that bill, but in general for President Obama when it came to wrangling votes in the Senate. Mayor Pete.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.